There you go. Here we are, November 13th, the week of. We're going to see what's going on. We have an arrow we can already see right off the bat at Saturn on this chart. This chart begins November 13th, but hopefully you've already seen the video. I put up a short one, at least I hope it was short, talking about the planets for the first 10 days of November. Some ingresses, meaning planets moving into a new sign. And Saturn was talked about because it's not an ingress, but Saturn went direct. So Saturn representing the rules, the burdens, like all the workload, the heavy workload you got, things feeling really kind of on the restrictive side. Now, I want to mention something that I should have mentioned before. Saturn in Pisces. What is Pisces? Pisces is our faith. Do you believe? Whatever it is that you believe in. Okay. And many folks with the Saturn retrograding through Pisces have felt a little disconnected, a little bit, maybe even on the lost side, right? A little bit more, because Saturn is powerful, right? It's heavy. It's heavy, it's dense, and it can even kind of feel like a gray cloud over you, right? So if your faith felt like it was being tested to the degree where you're just like, oh my God, like I don't, like I've lost my faith in humanity. I've kind of feel almost hope in a hopeless state. Saturn can kind of do that while it's retrograding. Okay. So that's while it's retrograding, because it's stronger when it's retrograding. So it going direct is good news. We don't feel Saturn's restrictions. It doesn't feel as burdensome and as heavy. And we may feel a little bit more like we understand. You see, when Saturn was retrograding, the understanding factor and the forgiveness factor was probably, held back a little bit, right? So, good news on that front with Saturn going direct in Pisces. So, we go to the Leo energy on the chart, and there it is. Black Moon Lilith, bam, 2145 retrograding. She's going to do a dance. She goes retrograde to about maybe 20, and then she'll go direct. See how she's already at direct at 21? Yeah. And she'll enter Virgo again. This is normal, right? She does a back and forth. That's the dance that she does. So it goes in and out of Leo and Virgo. So just keep that in mind, because then, it's our shadow side. But remember, it's the moon, right? Black Moon Lilith is the moon. And so emotions and feelings, things about the past, some folks possibly even connecting with soul families, soul history. There might be some ancestry involved where we're connecting with loved ones that, maybe we didn't know they existed anymore, and somehow they do, or maybe even just finding a photograph or just some sort of information, but something that we might get information on, because Virgo is the details, right? Leo can be father, because it's the sun that rules the sign of Leo. And so it going back and forth, right, can also be something about our children, again, ancestry, right? Because it's the moon. So we should always kind of think about that. And, there might be emotions and feelings we have around our family past and our family history. And a lot of it, for many folks, there's a lot of soul stuff going on. When we think of soul history and soul memory, we think of the moon and Black Moon Lilith and White Moon Lilith and Pluto, right? All those things, all those objects in the chart can stir up those things. Scorpio energy as well can stir up, and Cancer, of course, and Pisces for that matter too, right? But can stir up the water signs, by the way, can stir up those emotions, those feelings, sometimes those intuitions and those knowings. Think feminine energy. But Black Moon Lilith represents like the shadow side. So Black Moon Lilith in this chart here, she is at 21 degrees in Leo, but look what's going to happen here. By 7 days' time, Black Moon Lilith is going to be back in Virgo. Right. And that's how fast she moves. In 7 days' time, so we're talking like the 20th of November, Black Moon Lilith will have found her way, and she'll already be at 12 degrees in Virgo. So I'll put her there ahead of Juno. Juno, I'm sorry, Black Moon, my bad. Black Moon will be at 16 degrees and Juno will be at 12 degrees. It was Juno that moves to 12. So we're just going to leave Juno where it is because it's a 2-degree difference, but the Black Moon will be back at 16 in Virgo. Okay. So there was like like a 14-day time span where we had the Black Moon traveling, retrograding through Leo and then direct through Leo. And then yet again, back in Virgo, the details. Okay. So now we're going to take a look. We're going to go to the sun. The sun is over here in Scorpio energy at 21 on this day. So we know the sun moves 7 days, right? 1 degree a day. So that means the sun's going to be nearing a critical degree. She'll be near where you see the moon is on this chart at this time. Again, the moon is going to move because the moon is a fast mover. So the moon won't be here, but the sun will. However, I do want to point out that on this day, November 13th, do you see what we have here? Right? You see what we have. In Scorpio energy, we have the sun and we have Mars conjunct. You see that? Big conjunction there between the sun and the Mars. And I did mention that in the other video. This is significant because Uranus is at the exact opposite end. Now, since this is on a Monday, you could likely expect something over the weekend to occur or hearing about something over the weekend, even possibly. And it might have to do with news overseas, might have to do with the judicial system and justice in general, because the news, Mercury, is already in Sagittarius at this time. And we think of Sagittarius as our future, okay, as our future and the freedoms of our future, the truth, really. What is the truth? Our ability to discern fact from crap, and everything moves so fast, so fast. And Mercury is a representation of how fast things move because Mercury is very speedy, very speedy. Now, I want to give you guys a heads up. Mercury here is at 5:36. Mercury is going to move and will already be at 15 degrees, so about 10 degrees in 7 days' time. Okay, so she stays in Sagittarius. Let me go backwards. Let me get my Mercury, pull her down. We'll put her about right there. She'll be at 15. Okay. Now, this matters because we got to pay attention to everything, everything opposite, right? So opposite of Sagittarius is Gemini. Okay. So why does that matter so much? Well, Gemini is information and news. It is coworkers. It is the housing market. It is business and trade, right? So anytime there's those oppositions happening, we should expect the opposite sign, Gemini, to also be hearing about those things, right? Absolutely. So Gemini, again, think Mercury. When you hear me talk about Gemini, think Mercury because Mercury rules Gemini energy. Okay. So it's again social media and information and news. But Aldebaran is at 10 degrees and Aldebaran doesn't move. This is what we call a fixed star. It's a slow mover in the system. So it just stays there. It's very powerful, very powerful, and can be quite beneficial for folks when it shows up in your chart in a beautiful way, right? Meaning it's not bogged down or angled off with a bunch of crazy aspects squaring it. And so it just depends how your Mercury is also angled in your chart because Mercury rules Gemini, right? Right. So we're going to have this week where we will have Mercury opposing Aldebaran. So I would expect to hear something big, some sort of news, some sort of, like, holy crap, because Mercury is going to be, as it's traveling through that time, it'll be squaring Black Moon Lilith. It'll be angling off and squaring. Think of all the stuff in Virgo. Anytime you got stuff in Gemini, it's going to be squaring Virgo. Now, it also squares Pisces for that matter too, right? Because Pisces is the mutable signs. So it creates a big T-square with all of that. I know my chart's a mess. But we have Juno that pretty much almost stands still, a really slow mover. Juno is partnerships. And when I think of Virgo and partnerships, house care, health care, our food, the earth, right? But nursing, home healthcare aides, but holistic means so the vegetation, the plants, the animals. Holistic means that's Virgo, gardening, and Mercury squaring that. And in partnerships, Juno, right? So we also kind of just got to be aware that if Mercury's going to be opposing Aldebaran, there will be likely something we will be hearing about. And if we think about it on a large scale, I say large scale because, there's a lot. There's, yeah, like two wars going on, right? Or whatever you want to call the issue in, Ukraine and Russia. I call it a war. People are dying and fighting and dying. And then, of course, uh, Israel and in Gaza, and that whole that is so difficult. That scenario is very difficult. I just wish peace for everybody, and I know that's not enough. I know that is not enough. Peace, understanding, forgiveness. Maybe the understanding and forgiveness come first, and then we have peace. I just know that Aldebaran can be beneficial, can also, depending upon like those countries' charts, depending upon the ruler's charts, right? Because Pisces is the ruler. Think about it. Pisces are the people who are in charge as far as like politics, and they're the performers. So many times you have actors and actresses represented in Pisces energy. But people who are in charge absolutely can be Uranian and Aldebaran. And I say Uranian because we have the opposition of Uranus and the Sun and Mars. So it's the Sun is somebody who's in charge. And this has to do with the past and old wounds, right? The battle, because that's Scorpio stuff. It's like, this goes way back. This is deep. This isn't fresh. This is, this war never really ended type of stuff. Like that's Scorpio. And the Sun, a person who's an authority. And the degrees are exactly, right? 21 degrees. So that's why I was saying in the beginning, there might be that opposition. There might be some sort of a surprise that we hear from Uranus over here, who can also be an authority figure, but somebody who's trying to maybe implement peace, somebody who's trying to disturb the peace. It can go both ways. I know that's weird how that can be, but it can be, because Taurus is about peace. It's about the earth. It's about, can we all just get along? I would rather, uh, Taurus can be complacent at times because it doesn't want to change things that are familiar, right? But if its peace gets disturbed, then you get the horns type of thing, right? And having Uranus there, yeah, all we can do is, I hate saying the same old thing, pray, sending prayers, right? We just gotta figure out a way where things are more equal and balanced and truly fair for all parties involved. There's got to be some sort of talks and conversations that can be had. So Mercury this week, okay? Mercury this week brings us to that kind of energy, because Mercury will be in the opposition of Aldebaran. And we'll be feeling that opposition when we get closer to like the 14th and the 15th. Yeah, 14th and the 15th. 14th, 15th, 16th, 17th, 8th. Yeah. By the 17th, Mercury's already at 1141, you see. So these are just things to keep in mind going forward, especially if you in your own life are making plans, right? Things on the home front, domestic or at work in projects, because that's Virgo energy, right? Work, Virgo energy. So it's a tricky time, considering you'll have Mercury over here at 10 degrees in Saggy. You'll have partnerships at 10 degrees, and then Black Moon Lilith traveling through here as well, right? Yep. Black Moon Lilith will be traveling through there, and then you'll have Aldebaran. So this can be a difficult T square. It can be a very difficult T square, which I'll reinforce here in the color black, just so that we can see it, because I got too much going on here. I'm being very sloppy today, but there's that T square. Okay, so again, that T square is going to be setting up from about 14th, 15th, 16th you've got that T square. And you might feel something definitely here by Monday, even, right? Possibly. Moving along now, we're going to go to Venus. We know that Venus moved into the sign of Libra, which I'm grateful as heck for, because here she's already at 6 degrees, and Venus wants diplomacy and can bring peace. She's somebody, this is Venus's feminine energy, but Venus typically wants equality, wants equality. So I love that we at least have Venus in her own sign while we have, the opposition between Sun and Uranus. And again, if I didn't mention it, I'll highlight it here, that Mars is, you see Mars conjunct the Sun at the beginning of this week. And so that would have been that weekend of, right? And then Mars only moves like 5 degrees. So Mars is, like 26 degrees in Scorpio there. So the point is, Mars is still in Scorpio. Okay. And so is the Sun by the time this week ends. But Venus being there can be very beneficial, because when something is in an air sign, it promotes talking, communication, writing, thinking, right? Considering somebody else's perspective. Venus believes in equality. Venus believes in equality. And so the way things were set up, they were not equal. They weren't. How do I know this? Because we're talking about some old stuff. We're talking about things that whenever they were created and written, it's time for things to be amended wherever you live. It's time for things to be, like things need to be changed, right? So we need to have more conversations so that things can become more relevant and current. Our world is very different than what it once was. And so Pluto, I'm going to bring up Pluto real quick. Pluto is here to change those things. There's a reason Pluto does a retrograde in Capricorn at critical degrees, not once, not twice, but 3 times Pluto touches 29 degrees of Capricorn. 3 times. 3 times this Pluto will touch 0 degrees of Aquarius. You see, Aquarius is new ideas. New ideas. Consider something you haven't considered before. Consider that which you thought was impossible. You see, and Pluto is the history. It is the past, but it is the power with purpose. But Capricorn is governments. Governments. How that stuff had been set up for so long. Pluto was in Capricorn for 20 years, right? And so Pluto at these 29 degrees says, okay, a lot's happened. And now by all the digging and the drilling I've been doing, I have been showing you all the abuses of those in power, people with money and people within the government, sick money, right? And the power that they wield and the way that they are your rulers, not your representatives. So this Pluto is trying to show us that we, the people, to have our power, we must use our votes, right? We must use our votes. And there must be a change within systems to make sure that the people's voices are heard and that we are represented. And for those who are overseas, for those whose government I don't know a whole lot about at all, so I'm not going to even pretend, but please add some things in down below. Share your knowledge of wherever it is that you live and let us know how that's working out for you, because Venus has a lot to do. Whatever Venus is doing, it's connected, because there's so much in the chart that is screaming about the past. And so equality, which is why I drew the Venus and her scales of checks and balances in the color black, because Pluto says it's time for that divine change. And unfortunately, as humans, we don't change until shit gets really bad. Like, it's got to be broken in order for that change to happen, right? And so, unfortunately, usually there comes pain with those changes. It's the pain that brings the change. And that's unfortunate. But that's how we are. That's how we are as human beings. We are all like that, you know. Some of us may be a little bit more assertive than others, or a little bit more progressive, where we like change, we embrace it, but the fixed signs don't like change, folks. That's the reality. So Venus in Libra thinks of equality, thinks of fairness, wants to consider the other side, because Venus is the ultimate diplomat. Venus is very smart, knows how to use the right words, wants beautiful words, right? Says, okay, to for this person, when I'm speaking, for them to actually not just hear me, but to actually truly listen to what I'm saying, like to actively listen, like to not check out. I got to use the right words. I got to connect with this person. I have to be able to speak in a way that will fall upon their ears with beauty and peace, and where they will truly somehow maybe elevate their Venus language, because Venus can elevate and can become Neptune. The higher octave of Venus is Neptune. And so this is a time where Venus can become Neptune, can light that way to show us and to show how things can possibly be better, even though it may not be perfect, folks, right? Like that's an extremely high ideal perfection, but we're striving. That's the thing, we're striving for that, and there's nothing wrong. It goes back to the old saying, even, shoot for the moon, shoot for that moon. Even if you miss, you'll be among the stars. And that's what it means. It's not like Hollywood stars. It just means you keep shooting for the highest and the best and the ultimate and the ideal, because where you land will be at a different spot than where you began. Okay. And so Venus can do that during this time. She is in her sign. She rules here. She rules here. Thank you for your time, and I will see you in the next one. Take care. Bye bye.